In the news this week, we'll be talking about the RTX 4090 Dragon. It's actually out now. It's official. We'll also be going over a rumor of a 700-watt NVIDIA GPU. It's like we're going back in time a few years. That definitely was already a rumor at one point, but it's back. It's kind of different this time. And we'll be talking about Starforge with a response to our pre-built review. It's actually pretty good. Before that, this video is brought to you by ID Cooling and the Frozen A620 series air coolers. The Frozen A620 coolers use a dual tower, dual fan design and come in both ARGB and non-RGB variants. ID Cooling has remained largely value focused while keeping performance as good as possible for the price. This is something we talked about with the 216 previously. Check out the A620 for a dual tower cooler for your mid-range gaming PCs at the link in the description below. First up, the disappointment build is live. It's our annual build video. A lot of fun. It's a way for us to explore some of the creative side, but also just recalibrate, look at the craziness of the past year. And if you didn't see it, you should definitely check it out because it included some of the best memeable quotes from all of the executives from 2023. As an example.
So kids, Papa's here.
Yes, he actually said that. And then there was this one too.
Who's looking forward to Starfield?
Which apparently got most innovative game of the year from the Steam Awards. And from what I understand, that was a meme thanks to Reddit, but it didn't stop Starfield from promoting it on their Twitter page. So good job, Reddit. Your memes became reality. Anyway, that video's up. We really enjoyed working on it. It's a horror-themed intro, basically, where the computer parts are all possessed and taking over the office. We do that every year. We've done it since 2017 now. The 2017 one was actually possessed by a Vega GPU. That one was a lot of fun as well. Way different editing style. And with that, we also launched our brand new and annual limited disappointment shirts. I have one on right now. These directly fund all of our testing, equipment purchases, review product purchases going into 2024. And you can see the funding we raised with the shirt from last year in play in our hemi-anechoic chamber that we just recently used again in our Starforge PC review, if you want to see an example of where the money ends up going when we sell these. These have been selling crazy fast as always, and we're actually already out of one of the sizes in cotton. So if you want one, make sure to grab one as soon as you can on store.gamersnexus.net, because we will not be making another round of these. They're already in stock, and they're already shipping basically immediately when you order. The disappointment shirt features an exploded diagram of a memory module on the front and a memory architecture layout on the back. The spine is decorated with a representation of computer memory, and the flanking dates list all the most disappointing hardware industry events of the year. And thankfully, snake oil snuck in right at the end. So thanks, Intel.
Thanks, Steve.
That was literally, so I was working on the shirt design, and we were in San Francisco when I was finalizing that design, which is where we filmed the snake oil video. And I sent the design, and right when I hit send, I saw the news pop up about Intel's crazy snake oil slide deck, and I hit unsend immediately. I was like, this needs to go on the shirt. And it did. So it made it in. And it made it into the video, the disappointment intro, which we have Wendell to thank for the art on our snake oil bottle here. It's one of one. I really should get him to sign it next time. Anyway, we sincerely appreciate the support from all of you who've bought the shirt this year, all the prior years. We received a lot of messages from a lot of you in the audience who've been collecting these over a few years now, so thank you for doing that. And I wanted to express our sincere gratitude as a team because the funding boost sets us up pretty well for testing and, again, review hardware purchases. I just placed a bunch of orders for pre-built, some GPUs, and a couple of other things that we're gonna be reviewing over the next month or so. And that is all funded directly by the shirt purchases. So you can grab one on store.gamersnexus.net. They're available in cotton, 100% cotton, or in a heather charcoal design if you'd like one of those. And we still have all sizes covered between the two options, but we ran out of one of the sizes already in cotton, and we're gonna be running out of all of them within probably the next 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the pacing. So anyway, let's get into the news. The first one is the RTX 4090D, which has been called the Dragon Edition. That's because it is a China exclusive launch. So the 4090D is now an official card. It's been covered in the sort of rumor mill for a month or so now on and off. And this is compliant with the US sanctions on the total processing power, making it capable of being shipped into China and sold there. NVIDIA's official specs page lists the card as costing 13,000 renminbi, or about $1,831 US. It still has 24 gigabytes of GDDR6X VRAM, so that's the same, but it cuts down the CUDA core count to 14,592 cores from 16,384 on the normal 4090 non-D. So that reduction is about 11%. Traditionally, this type of change might warrant a 4080 Ti, but rumors point toward a 4080 Super already being on NVIDIA's list for the next major launch globally. The other big change on the spec sheet is the power target. The original 4090 has a power target of 450 watts with the 4090D at 425 watts. We'd wager that the 4090D may lack any significant overclocking support to help it further comply, but presently we don't have one to confirm. And additionally, we don't know if they've done any extra tweaking to help it further comply. So as an example, we don't know if they've changed the tensor cores from what you'd normally see for that SM count. And that's something that'll just have to be confirmed once some of the first people get them. All right, next one. This is really short. It's the shortest story we have this week. It's a rumor of a 700-watt NVIDIA card codenamed Skinny Joe. And the leaker Harukaze5719 spotted the card, posted a tweet, and showed it being added to a support list via a forum update. So there's no more information right now. We've seen some speculation on it being a data center card at 700 watts. That would probably make sense. Feasibly, it could maybe be a 4090 Ti or something, but it's entirely speculation. We know nothing beyond the tweet. So it might exist. Let's move on. Our next story is a follow-up to our Starforge pre-built review. If you didn't see it, we reviewed the Horizon 2 Ultra. It's a pre-built machine from Starforge. Our main complaints were criticisms of screw torque, where they had a number of loose screws. I think it ended up counting, we didn't give a final count in the video, but I think it was like 5 or 6 or something depending on how you count the side panel. So it was a lot, and it was enough to not just be a mistake. It's like there is clearly a process issue here. And then they also had the peel, the protective peel on the thermal pad for the SSD heatsink on the motherboard applied to the SSD, which isn't great. Fortunately, and we said this in the review, that SSD is not hot enough. It didn't affect the performance. The steady state temperature is more or less the same, and that's just because it's not fast enough. And so they skated by with it, but it was one of those, okay, this really needs to be removed. It's a process control issue. If they start using stuff where it matters more, or they skip other steps, that could lead to issues. So those were our concerns with the system, but overall we were relatively positive on it. And as far as pre-built reviews go, if it's a weighted scale, we were extremely positive on it compared to some of the others. So Starforge emailed us to inform us of some changes they're making as a result of the review. The company stated that it has identified a shortcoming in its process, specifically for the screws, for how it's handling installing hardware, and it was a difference in where manual versus powered screwdrivers were being used by the build teams. And different people were using different approaches to it. And most of you probably know this, but an incorrect torque setting on a powered driver, whether it's a drill or just an electric screwdriver, means it'll stop spinning, obviously, before it's actually fully properly seated. And likewise, using an electric screwdriver that's too weak, like some of the cheaper ones you can get on Amazon or something, they never quite have that torque to really cinch it down at the last couple turns. So those are some of the process differences. Starforge noted the following in its email to us. It said, quote, "In identifying this, we have outlined 2 key changes that will help to support better accuracy and attention to detail in the future. 1, the build team leaders are instituting a quarterly workshop to reiterate our prep and assembly processes with the team, as well as ensure hands-on time with each team member in order to identify areas for improvement. They said our goal with this program is to provide a knowledge refresh to team members, as well as create an opportunity for continual training and maintenance. Point 2, in addition to the quarterly training and knowledge refresh workshop, our team will also be expanding the scope of our internal QC to add a monthly random build audit for each builder. The goal here is not to create an antagonistic program that passes down punishment for errors, but rather simply identifies areas for improvement and provides another opportunity for our managers to work with their team at a mentorship level and ensure habits are corrected where necessary. Along with this, we're implementing an incentive program that rewards consistent top scores on these spot checks. In addition, we'll also implement an incentive that encourages improvement, providing compensation for consistently correcting assembly errors caught in our prior audits. Once again, our team deeply appreciated your honest feedback on our product, and we're hopeful that these changes will help to further elevate our customers' experience with Starforge. Generally speaking then, Starforge management was extremely professional in its receipt of the criticism and responding so quickly with a plan of action. They responded, so basically within 5 or 6 hours of the review going live, we had an email in our inbox with this saying, here's what we've identified, here's how we're fixing it. And that's great to see. So this is what we kind of wanted to see as a response because the issue seemed like it was more of just tightening up the processes and defining it for the team, and it looks like that's what they're doing. And we've seen this response a few times over the years from SI. So iWayPower, as an example, years ago, wrote a similar big QC overhaul that they told us they were doing as a result of one of our reviews. And then Skytech, previously after the last one, where they had the backwards fans, facing like opposing fans on the heatsink, they had some process improvements as well. But Origin actually also had plans to improve its processes after our review, where they had the 5800X 3D or whatever it was failing to hit the spec in that system. So anyway, it's good to see when a company immediately finds out what caused the issue, puts a plan in place, and it's especially true with pre-builds where so much can differ from one builder to the next in the same company. So Starforge also had this nice message at the end of its email where it said, once again, from the whole team, we really appreciate you all putting together such a thorough review here. While we are internally committed to continuous improvement, I cannot stress enough how much it helps to have a respected third party assess your product and provide their honest feedback. So that's good. Sounds like the attention to detail elements might be addressed. We'll be checking back in on them periodically, just like we do for all the other pre-built reviews. And so we might look at them again this year sometime once they've had enough time to make those changes, and we can do another spot check undercover. Before then, though, we have an upcoming tour of the facility, and it's part of a bigger story that we're excited about. That'll be coming out sometime in the next weeks to month. They didn't know we were working on the review at the time we toured, and it was really hard for me to keep my mouth shut when we were looking at stuff, talking to them, because I was like, I have thoughts on this because I've already worked on a computer, but we didn't say anything. Anyway, that'll be coming up later. Okay, next one, new leaks of AMD's 8000 series desktop APU. These are some of the Phoenix APUs that are coming out, and there's the socketable ones. So this past week, the two primary leaks indicated a Ryzen 7 8700G and a Ryzen 5 8600G. These have been picked up by a lot of places, but Notebook Check has some Geekbench listings screenshotted. The 8700G is an 8-core, 16-thread part with 12 CUs on a Radeon 780M IGP, according to Geekbench. The listing presents a 4.2 gigahertz base frequency, 16 megabytes of L3, and a score of 29,244 for OpenCL, or 35,000 for Vulkan performance. Meanwhile, the 8600G leak indicates a 6-core 12-thread APU with Radeon 760M graphics embedded with base at 4.35 gigahertz. The CES is next week, and AMD almost certainly has announcements there along with everyone else, so we'll probably hear more then. We'd expect to get more news on those. Neo and GPD handhelds, these are kind of fun. So handheld gaming brands Neo and GPD have both announced that they will be using the new AMD 8000 series solutions, and they claim to be the first handhelds that are using them. Neo's relatively new Neo Flip is known to have the 8840U APU to power its dual screen handheld device. Checking the AMD spec pages, the 8840U is functionally the same as the 7840U for use cases the Neo device might see. They're both 8-core 16-thread CPUs boosting up to 5.1 gigahertz and with a 3.3 gigahertz base, and they both have 12 CUs at 2700 megahertz. The difference is in the TOPS performance for the AI engine, where the 8840U gets a big uplift, but this seems probably irrelevant for most potential buyers of the handhelds. The handheld itself is pretty interesting on its own, though. The Neo Flip DS is clearly meant to be a Nintendo DS follow-up. It has a dual-stick layout with a somewhat standard set of face button options, and it's got the two screens. The GPD also noted that it's launching an 8840U-based Win Mini device. Up next, we've been talking about the 3050 6GB refresh for a while now. It's basically a 3050 that's got some reductions, like in VRAM, 2 gigabytes down. But there's a new one that's a fanless solution that was spotted by video cards, and this one's kind of interesting. So this 3050 6GB from Palit, again spotted by video cards, is mostly interesting not for the GPU, but because passive cards are extremely useful and utilitarian and still somewhat rare at any reasonable performance level. We use them internally all the time for our acoustic chamber. Focusing on this one image from video cards, we can see the fins are oriented top to bottom, but with the bottom fully closed off. This type of card would do a lot better in an inverted build where you get the heatsink facing up. The lack of any forced airflow means it'll rely on natural processes, and this is where heat rising actually does start to matter for passively cooled systems. Up next, an AMD Skateboard, sort of. It'd be cooler if it were a full-sized skate deck, but it's a USB key. Good enough. And it's a fingerboard. maybe with working wheels. Lenovo and AMD released an officially cross-branded USB key finger skateboard. IT Home says that the drive maxes out at 400 megabytes per second read and 300 write. The housing is aluminum and the drive rotates out to reveal a Type A and Type C connector. Definitely would block a lot of ports, but it's a novelty. We don't have one to confirm, but it does look like the wheels actually spin, and this joins an existing fingerboard from Lenovo with the Xiaoxin written across the top. Without seeing the characters written, I'm not 100% sure, but Xiaoxin commonly means careful or be careful, which maybe makes sense. Next one, JS Aux is releasing a translucent docking station for the Steam Deck, the ROG Ally, a couple other devices from Neo. JS Aux has seen crazy success from its translucent shells for the Steam Deck, which are full swap shells, and the dock rests the device at an angle and it allows it to connect for charging. The specs include USB-C in with output to gigabit Ethernet, USB 2.0 Type A, two USB Type A 3.0 at 5 gigabits per second, and USB-C at 5 gigabits per second with another USB-C connector. And JS Aux recommends a 100-watt charger for the ROG Ally to ensure sufficient power for a 30-watt mode and all other I/O options. The cost is pretty high. The one model is $70, and then the other is $100 with a TF slot, 3.5mm audio interface, SD card slot, and some other extras. The last one we spotted on Tom's Hardware, and it's just kind of fun. This is a Kickstarter project by Jason Rogers that shows off a retro gaming watch, as it's called. The campaign video makes references to other fun retro watch designs of ages past. The watch claims to use hardware-assisted rendering and emulation, noting use of an FPGA, an ARM Cortex-M33, and promising capabilities to, quote, easily handle just about any DOS-era game. The watch also connects to smartphones and behaves as a typical smartwatch. The creator notes that looking cool was high on the priorities list, behind being functional. He has videos embedded in the campaign page that show Metroid 2 and Stunt FX running on an FPGA board, and developmental photos of the PCB iterations. From the Kickstarter post, it sounds like the main challenge has been getting the size under control so that it's usable for gaming when dismounted from the wrist, but also a normal size watch when on the wrist. The Kickstarters always have risk attached to them, so we're not sure where this will end up, but it's a cool concept and the shell has a good look to it. So that's it for this roundup. Thanks for watching. As always, we'll have a ton of news next week. There'll probably be a few episodes because CES, so likely there'll be announcements from at least the big silicon makers, and then probably some roundups of some of the other stuff at the show. But check back for all that. You can subscribe for more. Go to store.gamersnexus.net to grab a shirt like this one. And thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.